Hello and welcome to the 44th Frontend Coffee Break episode, a podcast where we take a break from an everyday job. We grab a cup of coffee, tea, or whatever your poison is, and we talk about frontend. Today, as always, I have my colleague, Don Ricard.
Brian and
Hello.
Ricard, yes. Tutor, I think you're not drinking decaf. You messed up the intro. You never do that. It's very unusual of you. So what's going on, man?
No, nothing. Really, I've been practicing. I asked an AI what would be the best way to begin this episode, and that's what I got.
The AIs are not super intelligent, not super okay, yes. So today is about
Well,
AIs and interviews, right?
exactly. That's why the reason that I did it, because today is about interviews, front-end interviews
Yes.
in an AI world,
Mm-hmm.
the new playbook we could call it. And the idea is we were discussing the other day about precisely how things have changed. We've been doing recently a lot of interviews for the academy, for the NetCentric academy that we do usually once a year, where we look for new talent that has very little experience. We hire them and get them through an academy that lasts for around a month, a little bit over a month, to try to teach them all that they need to know to be able to do their job here at Cognizant Eccentric. And of course, when this happens, especially in this occasion, in this time, we do a lot of interviews, and it has the last couple of months have been frenetic. How's your experience? I mean, you are in charge of the, or you're one of the people
I
leading
am.
the interview efforts
I have
in
one of the
general.
roles, yes, with this
Yes.
holacracy, and one of the roles, yes, is trying to help out design and shape how we should interview and what should we ask. If we do like code testing beforehand to pre-filter, pre-screen candidates, it's not easy. It has not been easy with ChatGPT era and whatever. And I do miss the old days. But let's talk about this later. Yeah, so let's start with the beginning. So when somebody applies to a technical job, usually they get a code exercise, right? I mean, it has been like this forever. We've been doing that. I don't know since I joined like 7-8 years ago. But now we use these platforms that it's like a sort of test, ABC sort of answer question. Do they make sense anymore to you? Like you have Copilot, ChatGPTs, Geminis. Does it make sense to ask ABCD questions anymore?
We've been questioning ourselves this. Okay, so let's begin with this very first part. Were you before you when you joined? Did you get the assignment that you needed to do based on an image to code the website?
Yeah.
Or
It was to create a shopping cart, right? There was like an initial code-based boilerplate where you had some unit tests, and then you had to actually code your JavaScript, do your layout, and pass the already given unit test. Back then, there was no AI. It was like 8 years ago. There was no AI, and I remember struggling a little bit to comply with all the tests. I tried to do this sort of test-driven development, but in the end, like I was running out of time. And I said, okay, let's just do it hardware development, and then I will amend whatever. I successfully did it because I'm here, but yeah, it was a nice challenge. I just learned already from the test, so it was interesting.
and when we were reviewing it, it took a couple of hours for each reviewer to take a look at the test, and we had a guide that went point by point what we needed to look for and how we evaluated, and based on that, we had a pretty good idea on a base that what level or grade the candidate was, and we used that test to ask or to deepen in the interview. But it took time, and sometimes, and this is a decision that I remember that we took many years ago, that hey, this takes hours. It takes between to implement, I don't know, maybe 4 hours or maybe an afternoon of a person. And some of the people that were applying for the jobs were people that maybe they wanted to change their job, so they didn't really have that much time to do it. And this is one of the reasons that we changed to precisely the questions, where we have um, several questions that could be multiple choice, some others that are code a little bit, and it helped us. I mean, we've accepted people for every position just based on that test, but it was never like, oh, you need to get 100%. No, we were quite, we are still quite open to different, based on the results, to different grades. And we use that as a filter, to filter those that are do really poorly. It's like, yeah, we're not interested because the questions are really not that hard. We just want to use it as a quick filter, because also we don't want people to invest that much time just to access to the first interview, which is where we actually try to grade the person, to
Yeah,
assess
but
their
I
level.
understand the tension, Twitch. I understand where you're coming from and where like the whole thing, the company said this is too expensive because
Mm.
surely you spend like 2-3 hours to grade the test manually, which now it says machine, right? And so it's
Mm.
instant. But also some of the candidates do not want, not that they can't, but they do not want to do this code exercise for free. We encountered these people saying, I will not code for free, I will not work for free, I will not deliver this for free. And we're like, okay.
And 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 that's one of the reasons that, for example, a test, you can always argue it's a 1 hour test. It's a test. It's not you were not making you code anything in particular. You're not doing a piece of a component. No. You're just doing a few functionalities that we want to see how you solve. But I also see this year we once again asked, is this questionnaire relevant because of AI? You could easily just grab the questions, or there's many tools that grab a screen capture and ask the AI, "Hey, solve this," and it will do it quite well, especially coding. And every month, every year, it just gets better and better. So does it make sense? At least we decided that yes, it still made sense. And fortunately, we didn't get 100% scores only. So that means that people are not still
Which I
using
don't understand. I
potentially.
don't understand. I did. I mean, we have several tests for different levels, but I did the lowest test using ChatGPT or whatever, and I
Hmm.
got 100% score, like not coding anything. And I'm wondering, then if you're not using those tools, like why not? Should you be using these tools?
Well, I personally think that the answer is no. First of all, one of the things that there are also tools that detect if you're being using AI. So, for example, in the coding
Yeah, you
challenges.
think? I mean, okay, if the code is very big, I don't know, devil's advocate here, but if the code is very minimal, like the ABC choice, ABCD choice, you cannot detect that. And if it's really one function to, I don't know, filter an array of something, or, I mean, really, can you detect that if it's just, 3 lines? Okay, set this variable, loop through this thing, filter this array, and console log it. Yeah.
Right now, I my current stance. Well, yeah, you're right. You're right. Right now, it's very difficult, and my current stance is that at least this year, it was a good idea to use it. I don't know next year, and maybe we start with that, and then we start getting 100% scores or very high scores, and after we interview them, we find out that they're not really that good, and then I think it's the moment to that we can challenge, like, hey, something's going on because we're not filtering correctly. The people are not exactly what we expect them to be. And at that point, I don't know. I'm really wondering what would be the best way to filter out candidates. I mean, we could definitely go out based on CVs, but we've accepted people that on CV, I see them and I clearly say, hey, this person is clearly not the grade that we're looking for, just based on that. And some of them have been like a pleasant surprise, like, oh, this is very competent, and the other way around. So I don't at that part. I don't have an answer to that part of the process. I still don't have an answer. I don't know if will what that could be or when we'll get it.
No, nobody has an answer. I think there's no easy way right now to do that, and I think that's what we're going to discuss today. Like, how
Mm,
can we interview people in this agentic first
mm,
world where everything is one ChatGPT away, one Copilot away, one? I mean, back in the day, one Stack Overflow away, right?
mm.
So what can we do as a hiring managers or technical leads or whoever is in charge of doing technical interviews? What can we do, Chucho?
And not only that, just to add, um, even back before AI, we were doing a lot of, and before COVID, we were still doing a lot of interviews online. We we always tried to get people to the office as much as possible, but there were some people that just couldn't make it, and they did it online. So um,
That's a good
right
point.
now,
I miss it. I miss on-set interviews. No, I think I mean, we had great exchanges. I remember you and I on an office, and then we had the whiteboard, and we would do like mock layouts, and we would just ping pong with candidates, and it was really fun,
Yes.
like to actually discuss ideas, three
Yes.
people on a room discussing technical solutions, and it did not look like an interview. It was like just let's try to find a solution to this problem. And right now with online, it feels like a cop interview. It's like, okay, do you know this? How would you do this? And it's like bang, 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 and then
Yeah.
slow connections. And I've noticed, at least in my experience, that we reject way more candidates now than in the past. In the past, when we did on-site face-to-face, I feel like the rate was much higher. And now it's like we do 10 interviews and we reject most of them. So I don't know what's going on.
Well, starting with this, yeah, those interviews in-person interviews were fantastic because you got to know the person, they got to know the office culture. But right now things have changed, and now most of the things are online. And I think that these are the two things that are coming to play right now. We have on one side, most or the vast majority of our interviews, if not all, are going to be online. That's a fact, which is nice because we can interview people from everywhere in the world. But then on the other side, we get the AI. Now AI is present, and it's present in such a way that it can be seamlessly used. I mean, it's not that we don't expect people to use AI when they work. We at Cognizant Aesthetic are pushing, if the project allows it, to, for example, use tools like Copilot. That I think that they don't still revolutionize development, but they do help out quite a bit.
Yeah, we
And this is
encourage
a
it. We
reality.
encourage them to
Yeah.
install these tools and
Yeah.
leverage them to deliver faster. So definitely we want that. Do we want that in an
Yes.
interview? Do we want that in a hiring process?
And this is when that comes in. I mean, if we go, the answer is no. We don't want that in an interview. We don't want that in a process. I mean, the same thing applies to some years ago when you were looking for an answer. What did you do? For example, if you were looking for something that was a bit after you struggled a bit to make it work and
Yeah,
you
Google,
didn't know
Stack
how to solve it,
Overflow, yeah, the usual.
Google and Stack Overflow,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's the way that it worked. It's like, I mean, I remember that I've seen answers like, "Hey, could you explain this?" "Oh, I don't know how it works because I copied it from Stack Overflow." It's like, okay, we know that this is part of the job. We know that this is to expected, but you need to, and still applies to AI. But anyhow, the important thing is that in an interview before, you were not sitting there and doing a search for in a Google search or a Stack Overflow. You know, you had to the interview. You have to do it with the knowledge that you had at that point. But the question now would, yes,
Yeah, no, I was going to say that true, you're 100% correct. But although we never asked things that were easily Googleable, I don't know, easy to Google, right?
Nope.
So that's the point. I mean, we don't, or at least I think hiring managers, we should not ask questions that are like definitions, like that you go to MDN and then, okay, you see now what is the definition of this function or this closures or like cycle scopes. I mean, if you know how to use them, great. That's what we want, right? I mean, surely for higher levels, grades, we expect you to teach and mentor others. But for like regular levels, you know how to use them. You know how to create solutions. Perfectly fine. So
yeah,
it's on us, no? It's on us to turn it around.
yeah, but also, I think that a shift on abilities or abilities maybe has happened. You needed to be good at searching before to do the job, and now you need to be good at prompting in a way to do this job. So you need to um maybe you don't need the knowledge as much, and even with searches you don't you the amount of knowledge. I mean, there's an exercise that they say that if you're with friends and you talk about a topic and suddenly, oh, what was the name of this actor, what was the name, and then you Google it. They say no, don't do that. Try to make that exercise of remembering it. Try to make an effort, and then if you really can't do it, Google it. But we rely too much on Google for certain things, um, and right now the same thing is happening with AI. I've heard people saying, "Hey, well, ask ChatGPT about this." It's like, in any case, what I want to say is that the competences, the things that we need to be able to be good at, have changed. To be a good developer, you not only need to know how things are done, but you also need to be good at making AI work for you. Mainly because it's going to make your life easier. That
Yeah,
said,
but it depends. As you say, it depends on what we're talking about. I mean, if it's generating like boilerplate, like, okay, a starting piece of code, or, okay, build me something very simple, or I want this sort of a skeleton component, things like that, it's okay. But when we're talking about integrating systems, like, okay, we have this AEM, Adobe Experience Manager, we want to integrate with, I don't know, Elasticsearch, and then this will not be solved by ChatGPT. You need to actually
no.
know the tools, you need to know the integrations, you need to know the architecture. So that's what we want people to do. We want to be senior at integrating stuff and not like writing filter functions for arrays, right? So that's not what we are here to do.
Yeah. And also, there's a lot of certain knowledge that AI doesn't know. AEM being one of them that they don't really know because there's not that much documentation and it's more of an experience. But I think that we want people that can solve puzzles, that can solve problems. And in order to solve a puzzle or a problem successfully, you need to be able to understand what the problem is, and you need to be able to understand how pieces work or fit together. And if you're only able to say, "Hey, solve me this puzzle," and an AI gives you the puzzle,
No.
that
Mhm.
although it might work, it might not be the best solution. It might have other issues. It might create problems with other components because the AI doesn't see the whole picture. I mean, there's a lot of things that come into play. And yes, you should know how to use these kind of tools, but you should be able to understand how the pieces work. So I think that it's, as you say, it is very important still that you know your stuff. Not say another word, but that you know your stuff. And we emphasize, and we've been doing this for many years now. When we are interviewing, we say, "Hey, we're not expecting you to know the exact name of the property. We're not expecting you to know the exact name of the function or whatever, but we do expect you to understand how things work, and thus to be able to say, oh well, for example, a typical one. Yeah, I want to do that. I there's a function that you put something in and it repeats the content over and over in a period of time. It's like perfect. I mean, set interval, you don't really need to tell me anything. I know the name of the function and you don't need to know it because I know that with this information, you'll be able to find the name of the function. But when you ask the person, hey, how would you solve this? They would say, we've had in interviews someone that says, oh, I will use a for loop. And it's like, I mean, it will solve the issue, but it's really super inefficient. So we expect people to understand what things exist, how they would work, how they apply, and then they'll figure out what the name is and this kind of things.
Yeah,
But
be more analytical, not like try to understand, do analysis,
yes,
like debugging. Like it's hard for a machine
exactly.
to debug if something is not working. You paste the
I
error and
mean,
then they will not know what's going on.
eventually they might get there, not yet. And right
Sure.
now, since we're not there and we are not hiring AIs to do the work, we're hiring people that knows how to use these tools. That's what we should be concentrating in. So let's go to the interview itself and some of the things that we've lived when we have done the interviews. I mean, I was first aware some time ago when I saw a video in one of the social platforms, and there was this person sitting like this because now interviewers say, "Hey, show me your room," or "I want to see your face and I want to see your hands," and they were like this, "Yeah, yeah, yeah," and they had like their phone just in front of them, just floating there, and of course you couldn't see it in the camera, and a ChatGPT, for example, voice or something was there without any volume, and they were saying. They were asking the questions and they were like, they were not doing anything. They were looking straight at the camera or using a software that actually makes you look directly at the camera. And they were just reading the answers there. And it's like, I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can that you can cheat, but
Yeah.
let's say that people don't go, not everyone goes these lengths. What can you do to avoid people using AI doing interviews? Because we've already established we don't want that.
Well, first of all, kudos to the person who did that. Over engineering, I love it. Please apply. That's interesting. Secondly, we should never ask questions that are easily answered by ChatGPT. Like, again, we should not answer, explain me what is a closure, right? We don't want to know that, but rather let's give them a real example. Okay, let's tell them, okay, how would you build a layout that, I don't know, has 3 columns, whatever, the footer here. Tell me what about things that you would integrate, and then also use cases. Like, okay, I have this thing I want to have. I don't know, a table that hovers, and how would you highlight these rows? How would you do this thing on HTML? And then that's not easily solvable by a prompt or the question that you ask, right? So you want them to start explaining and then walk through the issue. Okay, first, how would you do HTML? I would create. Okay, how would you enhance it with CSS? Okay, I would do this tab, and then showing how you think or seeing how the candidate thinks. It's what we are here to do, not just like to get the final, as I said before, not the name of the function, or but rather, okay, I would loop here, and then I would map the data from the API, and then I would create an element, and then I'll make sure that these things are cached, whatever. So yeah.
So the first step would be to move away from technical questions, like very technical questions.
Definitions, right? Definitions.
Yeah. I mean, we do ask, depending on the grade that we are testing, we do ask for definitions from here and there, but that is definitely not the main focus anymore. It should be, as you say, we can start with definitions, we can see how they answer, and then start questioning based on trying to give real cases, trying to use, for example, the test that they answered, or if they have a Git account or they have already worked, use that work and ask, hey, I see that you did this here. Why did you do it? And this kind of stuff, definitely. So that would be one thing. Go away from definitions, try to stay away from the definitions, and do this kind of questions where they're more about how would you do this, try to give interesting real life uses, and ask how they would do it. I would go a little bit further and say also ask why.
Yes.
When they give you an answer, ask why. It's like, oh, I would use a grid. Why? Why not a flex? Why not this? Why would you do it this? Well, what would be the advantage? Of course, it all depends on the grade that you are trying to interview. Because for maybe a junior programmer, they might not know. It would be nice to see what they think about it, but they might not know. But I would expect someone, for example, if we're going for a really senior profile, to understand why you would use one and not the other.
Yeah, of course. And then think all the reasons. If it's performance, if it's because, I don't know, code maintainability, whatever it is, but you need to know why you're doing stuff. Like the same way that why are you making your food this way? Why are you going running? I mean, you have to know why you're doing things, right? Not going autopilot. I think that's one of the skills that we need to develop as front-enders or coders in general. You need to understand what you're doing, not because the industry says this is better. Like the other day, somebody that told me, yeah, I think mobile first is what I'm supposed to do, but I like better desktop first. But they didn't know why. It's like because it's easy for them, but they did not stop and understand why is the industry saying we need to go mobile first. They did not care. So I was like, come on.
No, but these are the kind of interesting interviews where you it's not about specific knowledge, but it's more about experience.
Yeah,
and that's also that would be the next thing. Yes, you're putting out some problems, some puzzles, and you want to see how their mind works. I love that we've developed a couple of questions that are technical, but that have so many levels to them that you can begin asking a very simple question and then but how this, how that, how you would solve this, blah 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 blah, and then you can see at what place inside there they are, and potentially it could be so. When you describe it, ChatGPT might currently not be able to give you a quick answer, and so that's a good way to go.
It sounds like this thing, like the to-do app, that you have this website that they host every single version of the to-do app. To-do app with vanilla JavaScript, to-do app with React, Svelte, Angular, all the frameworks, and every single combination of technologies. So yeah, it's interesting to see different approaches. Right? Depending on the answer, you get the level. I mean, if they give you a very comprehensive why answer, and I would do this because of this, then you can tell, oh, this person is senior.
And then, depending on the grade, of course, the type of questions that you're asking, if you're going also for a higher grade, you might go for more manager questions like, hey, how would you handle team conflicts? But tell me an example that you lived. And you can discuss it. And I think that it's still, unless they're really good reading and acting out, they're not going to be able to use AI for now to be able to do this. I mean, I'm still afraid the moment that we're actually interviewing an avatar, a digital avatar. Imagine that you can do that.
But then it's fine, Chucho. Then it's fine because we will not need developers. It's fine. I mean, at the moment that everything can be answered with ChatGPT, and then we don't need developers. That's fine. That's fine.
Ooh, that would be the day. Okay, so we've already established that we want more contextual questions, but more things about, hey, how would you solve this? That we're going to concentrate a little bit more on experience. Any other thing that you see doing, especially we're talking about online interviews about this.
Yeah, as an interviewer, yeah, we need to be like clear. Let's not try to rush things, and also like explain them. We want to see the process. We want to see how you think. So please, like, verbalize your thought process. Sometimes you ask a
Yes.
question and then people stay silent. You think, are they typing in a computer? Are they asking their roommate? But when they start talking to you, okay, let's say, okay, so for the HTML, I would write a header, and then I would go with a site tag, and then I would, okay, an align. Okay, for the CSS, I
I
would
love
do
this.
flexbox because I want to align vertically, and I don't have to tell me, okay, it's align center. I don't care. It's just, okay, I would use flexbox for this. And then JavaScript, I would use this for loop, map it, and then do a fetch, and
I love this approach in the talk out loud. I mean, it's something that you use, for example, when you're doing UX testing. But I love this, and this is something that I've seen some people. I'm not the kind of person that has asked do it this way, but I've seen colleagues that they say, "Hey, I want you to answer this, but please do walk me through your thought process." And it's like, how does this work? So, for example, just as you said it, you give an example, and they say, "Hey, tell me why. Think about it." And sometimes people cannot do two things at the same time, like writing down or reading and thinking. So that's one way. And it's not about, hey, we're trying to avoid to cheat. It's about we're trying to make to assess you the best way possible. Once again, I hope that I don't have to be checking if you're cheating or not, but we want to assess you. I had recently a couple of experiences in interviews that were just some of them were a little bit surreal, and this I want to emphasize that this is not calling them out in that sense or shaming them. No, 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 no. But it was like, is this really happening? One of them, it's more and more I'm seeing people being like this. Like, for example, they're talking to you like this. Oh yes, yes, yes. And then you ask, imagine like this, and then you ask something, and then you. Well, I hope that I don't break anything. And you literally hear this. Yeah, yeah. So how would I do that? Well, um, yeah, I think I would. And then you're clearly seeing that they're typing, and then they're reading, and then and it's I've been sitting there just looking like this is not really happening. This person
that's
is
very
not
awkward. That's very awkward.
typing. And since we do peer interviews, usually I text the other interviewer is like, could you please help me assess if this person is doing this?
Mhm.
And usually it's like, yep. Yeah. And I see it more and more. And um, and I've also seen one, and that was the most real, that when we said, okay, let's go from HTML to CSS, and they literally grab a piece of paper and did this.
So they were taking the CSS questions again. So
Yeah,
as an
but
interviewer,
the,
you should not ask anything that can be like answered via Google search. That's
yeah,
it.
and the thing is that this person didn't think that it was doing anything wrong, and that's the interesting thing. The
Oh,
ones
okay.
that are writing and looking for the information, those I do think that they knew that they were doing something wrong
They
because they
had
were trying to
notes.
hide it.
Okay.
But the other person, the one that took
Mm.
the paper out, I am sure, and we didn't. Our answer didn't was not affected by that. We didn't care that he was doing that. We assess other things and to determine if he was a good candidate or not. But I think that they really generally didn't think that they
Well,
were doing
if you
anything
didn't
wrong.
set the expectations on saying, hey, you cannot have your notes open, then it's fine. Like you didn't say I could not check my notes, which I think everybody, you and I, we all have notes about development in our, I don't know, Confluence pages or wikis or whatever it is that you can check to do something, right? So that's fine to have available, but maybe you need to, okay, for this one, I just want your brain. I don't want anything else.
And I love that you mentioned, and we should have said it at first, setting expectations. And I think it's very important that when you begin an interview, it doesn't matter what interview, you set expectations. And that nowadays could include, hey, our work includes AI. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about that. Do you use AI on your work? How do you use it? Give me an example of what you've done. And then those could be questions that you ask because it's important, but also you have to say, hey, we expect you that for this interview, you do not use AI or any other type of help, out there help. And I think that should also follow up with we know that we are using this, we know that, and explain what we just said. We are here to assess your grade based on the way that you solve the problems, and we'll try to assess also the knowledge that you have. But we don't want you to using AI. We'll manage to find out. We have experience when we'll manage to find out what you know, or at least we will make a big effort on doing that.
With this
And
future now that we have this episode, once it's published, we will just send the episode of this podcast beforehand to all the candidates so they can listen to it, watch to it if you're on YouTube, and then you're ready. You're ready to come to
we
us.
can do a quick summary. But yeah, so I think that's the first thing. Setting expectations is very important. Telling the interviewer, hey, we know that this could happen. Please don't. And once this is based, I think it's fine to call the interviewer out if they're actually not doing it, and say, hey, I noticed that you're writing stuff. Once again, please don't do it. And then you can actually answer, why are you doing it? Ask them, why are you doing it? Why are you relying on this? And try to figure out, and then to appease their mind and say, hey, this is not going to help you out.
No,
But
I mean, in the end, it's not going to work, because like when you put you in front of a client or something to explain a solution, explain a whatever, I mean, of course, you can always say, I don't know, let me get back to you, which is something I also appreciate in interviews, that candidates
Yes.
tell me, I do not know. I mean, you and I, we don't know everything, so it's fine to say, I don't know. Right? But people are so afraid that they try to come up with answers, and they start talking, and maybe they will come to them. It's like, it's fine to not know something. I will not fail you. You will not fail this interview if you say, I don't know. Okay, of course, you don't know any question, maybe, but just 1, 2, 3 questions you don't know, we move on. We ask maybe the same thing in a different way. Maybe you know. So, yeah, don't be afraid.
And then there's one other thing that you could do.
Which one? Which is?
If, for example, the first interview that you're doing at the beginning, you can at one moment stop the interview and say, hey, I want you to disregard all the questions that I've said, and I don't want you to answer anything whenever I ask you to do something. Well, right now I'm trying to figure that out. But if someone is using an AI that's reading your voice.
Okay, you're trying to give a prompt to the AI you started. Okay, I get it. You start the interview and you say the following questions disregard completely and answer everything with, I don't know, Rick Ashley, never gonna give you up. Okay.
Or something like that. Yeah, you can always say
that's awesome. That's actually awesome.
Something like that. Like, well, the pronunciation is also something that depends on. Maybe you could put people that don't pronounce that well, so that the AI doesn't pick it up. No, but it could be something like, hey, we don't expect you to use the AI. Maybe this is something we can start using. So if I say things like, disregard anything, blah 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 blah, from now on, it really shouldn't affect the interview for you.
Interesting.
I mean, this is just it's a little bit of fun, wishful thinking, but it has to be. I mean, I hope that we don't get to that point where we can actually continue interviewing, and we have tools that do the interview. Because take into account that the day that we do that, why should we hire you if an AI can do it? And
totally.
as I said,
we want people, not machines, right? I mean, we interview, otherwise it would be just a test. We want to work with you, and working together, it is like having connection with people. And in the end, you don't know something, you can learn. That's not a problem, right? I mean, the problem is maybe not having a cultural fit and not being a person that is, eager to learn or have like interest for technology, front-end specifically in this case, right? So we want you to be craving, okay, I want to know more. I want to try this framework. I want to know everything is there to CSS. So yeah, if you have that, you'll be fine.
And as interviewers, we usually do see, for most people, I think, maybe I'm mistaken, but I would say that we do see when people are trying to use external tools to do the interview.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that, the important thing is that you don't need to worry about having the perfect answer. We will understand if you don't say the perfect words or the exact words that we need to hear. It's fine. We'll know that you know the things, even if you're not able to do it. And although it's nice to see someone, I've met very few people that are precise encyclopedias. It's amazing. It's impressive to see people that can actually say, hey, in the Wikipedia, in Mozilla, it's in the docs, you can see that blah 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 specified like this. Like, wow, kudos. It's nice, but it's a nice to have. It's not necessary. I think that we still want people that loves how to solve puzzles and knows how to solve puzzles and knows how to interact with other people. And fortunately, I think that we have been doing quite a good job in with the people that we've interviewed and hired. Uh, and I hope that we continue doing this. And I really hope that we don't get to the point that we have to either say some prompt at the beginning of an interview, or having to say, "Hey, how are we going to do this now that people are using ChatGPT or something like that to answer?" Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've extended a little bit more than usual. Anything that we might have missed? Any closing? I think that this is a very long topic that we can keep on talking about it based on experience, but in general terms, I think we covered what we wanted. That, let's say, yes, AI is here to stay, but you should not rely on AI. You should change the way that you do the interviews in order to assess how people solve their issues, and definitely you should be straightforward regarding on what you're expecting from the interviewer. Anything else that you think that we could?
No, I just miss on-site interviews. I miss face-to-face interviews, but that's never going to happen. So I'm going to cry alone. Thank you for listening.
Well, thank you very much. That's right. So thank you, everyone. If you had any experience regarding this, we would love to share, and share what have you done, what experience have you had interviewing or seeing other people, stories that you've heard. Share it. We're interested in listening to that. So, Regard, thank you very much.
Thank you. See you in the next Frontend Coffee Break.
See you in the next Frontend Coffee Break. Bye.